Hello and welcome. I'm Janina Morris and I'm thrilled to be here with you today alongside Michelle Domino. Welcome to today's webinar, We Estimate Part Management and Real-Time Pricing Integration. This session will guide you through key features and best practices that will help you streamline your part management process. Throughout the webinar, we'll cover part and pricing imports, so you will learn how to easily import part pricing updates into the WeSuite database and ensure that you're always working with the most up-to-date information. We'll also cover management of discontinued parts. We'll walk you through best practices for managing discontinued parts so you can maintain a clean and efficient part database. And we'll also cover live part integration services where you'll find out how you can leverage live integration services such as ADI, PSA Security, ERP, Blackleaf Connect for real-time part data. As always, we want you to get the most out of today's session. So if you have any questions at any point, don't hesitate to ask. And whether you need us to slow down, revisit a point, or dive deeper into something, just drop your questions in the chat. And yeah, we have a lot of great content to cover, so let's dive right in.
All right,
Hello?
thanks, Janina. Thank you guys for joining today's call. So, as Janina had mentioned, we will be going through a few things with regards to getting your latest pricing and doing some part management and importing. So, the first thing is what I will go through is regarding getting the latest pricing and the best practices for that. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up an estimate here of a job that was created back in June of last year. And I apologize, our server is a little bit slow, so um, it's taking a little bit of time here. So the first thing I'm going to do here is, you know what I have one last thing I want to make sure that you guys have visibility of, and I'm just making one setting change very fast. So give me 1 second. I apologize for that. So I did want to make sure that I showed you a column that is available that'll actually convey a better story when it comes to getting the latest pricing. So you'll notice here there's a column here called unit cost, and you'll notice that the background of those cells is in the color of this reddish salmon color. What this color is indicating is that this part or these parts have been added to the job for longer than 60 to 90 days. And what I'll do here is just for some testing purposes, I selected here a one of the folders, and for this particular folder, I do want to get the latest unit cost pricing for just this folder. Now, to do that, I will then click this latest pricing icon here after I have selected all of the parts that I want to get the latest update of. You'll notice here I've selected the part and using this little triangle to the left. And you'll notice that there is a dotted line around that record. To select all, I could simply click the Shift key and click on the last item. And you'll notice here all of the parts that I selected have that yellowish background. That's how you'll know that you've selected the parts that you need to select if there are multiple parts. So from here, I want to get the latest pricing. And when I click on that icon here, again, this is the fourth icon on the left-hand panel, I get this pop-up window and I have the ability to select where I want to get the pricing from. You'll notice here that under vendor, I have accounting, ADI, PSA, and WeSuite. Now, I am given this selection because I do have accounting parts. I also have an integration with ADI, which is what we'll briefly discuss. I also have an integration with PSA where I am pulling in part data, which is on a daily basis from PSA. And then WeSuite, which is if I had a repository of parts that I loaded into WeSuite, I'm also able to have it check the WeSuite database. Um, Before I select any of those vendors, I do want to make sure that you understand here that there's a checkbox called latest pricing for matching vendor. With that selected, you'll notice there is a column here called vendor. This is an indication of where the parts were coming from. So if I have this checked, what it's going to do, if I select the matching vendor, all it's going to do is it's going to update this unit cost pricing utilizing the vendor that it came from or the source that it came from. So in this case, it would be coming from accounting. So what I'll do here, I'll select accounting, click OK. And what it's now doing is it's going back to our accounting system and just checking to make sure that the unit cost is up to date. So one thing I do want to also make sure that you also see is when I click all estimate items, you will notice that the only parts that were updated were the ones that I had on this display here. So again, I selected that individual folder and I was able to get the latest pricing here. All right. Um, Another thing to also bring to light is when you are getting the latest pricing, if you are expecting to have the unit sell price also be adjusted or to take effect after the update of the unit cost, what you want to do is you want to make sure that your markups setting in program options is set for the GPM to affect or control the unit cell versus the sell price controlling the GPM. Before I move forward, that was a little bit of information. Is there any questions? Is there anything that you'd like me to go through once more? And I'll give you guys a minute here. All right. Okay, so I will move forward. The next thing here, so just so you guys can see this as a demonstration, when I'm going to add, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a part, and what I want to show you is that there's this icon here. When you see WeSuite parts under the WeSuite parts tab, we integrate, again, this system is integrated with PSA already. And this icon here, which happens to be a little fox, is an indication that this part is coming from the PSA repository. If there is no little fox next to it, you'll notice that that only comes from WeSuite. Sorry, I'm trying to. So this is a WeSuite only part. It does not come from PSA. This is a PSA part. And then if we scroll up just a little bit more, this icon here has to do with Blackleaf, which is another integration that another accounting system that we integrate with. Their integration is also a very quick load that we connect via API. So that would be something that would require some configuration as well. So for demonstration purposes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a PSA part. And once it gets added, you'll notice here, again, here's your PSA, your vendor is different. When I add in that WeSuite part, it will display WeSuite. And I do want to also demonstrate what will happen if the PSA part doesn't exist in accounting, and what would happen to the update of that item. All right. So now I have items here that, let's say, again, I have PSA, I created a job, have WeSuite, and it's a whole mix of all different vendors. I also accidentally maybe, change some unit costs, things like that. And I want to get the latest pricing. So again, whatever's viewed in here is what will get affected. I will also select, again, shift. Here's my selection. I click on latest pricing. And now I don't want to do the matching for the vendor, because if I did, what again it would do is it would get the latest pricing from accounting for those parts that are accounting as a source, PSA for the parts that came from PSA, and then WeSuite for the part that came from WeSuite. In this case, I want to get all of my parts from accounting to get the latest cost. And so I click OK. And we'll notice here that these two didn't update. Now, the reason why they didn't update is because these two parts do not exist in Sedona or in our accounting system. This system happens to be integrated with Sedona. If you are expecting that, then there needs to be some check of your inventory to make sure that it does exist. Okay. Does does anybody have any questions so far? All right. Okay, moving forward here. So just something to, again, also take note of and keep in mind that anything that is from PSA or Blackleaf will show up on your WeSuite Parts tab. Otherwise, if you're connected to an accounting system, it will display in your accounting parts tab. All right. One last thing to mention is your ADI integration, if you have one with us. The ADI integration is not a direct read of the parts. What it is that we can go in here, right click, like or any part or all of the parts, let's say, sorry, select that. And here we could select ADI. And if the model number is aligned with the ADI number, then we can get a latest pricing and it would come from ADI. One thing to also note is that ADI's integration is very one-to-one. So your model number and your ADI number have to be exact. There can't be any extra spaces or missing a dash, because that's what ADI and WeSuite have to talk and look at. So it looks like the system probably doesn't have ADI set up fully, so that's probably why we got that error. But what will end up happening is if there is any ADI alignment, the vendor would then change to the ADI here for that part or parts. It looks like we have a question here. So currently, for any parts that are WeSuite parts or that were in the WeSuites tab, you'll notice here that there is an updated date here, and that would be the latest date that the pricing was last updated. And the accounting tab, on the other hand, because we do a live read, it's whatever you updated in accounting. We unfortunately don't capture the updated date from accounting integrations any longer, because every accounting system has a different updated date field, and or that they flag as considered updated. So it's not always accurate. Did that answer your question, Stacey? I apologize. I have a lot of background noise. Okay, yeah, so Stacy, if you have more questions, we can absolutely hop on another call and we can try to address any of those. We can always set up some time on support. You can request some time there. All right, so moving forward here, the next thing that we want to do here is, uh, so it says, how do we add the vendor header? So the vendor header, to add this column, you would go into tools. You could do it at a system level and you could do it at a user level. If you're doing it at the system level, you just want to go to tools, program options here, program options, and then in grid rights, global grid rights, you can sort by the field name or by the caption name, so you could see where vendor is, and you just want to make sure that you make it visible. You don't want to allow edit for that, which I don't think you can allow the edit for it because it is a calculated or auto-filled, an auto-filled field. The other thing here is if you wanted to do it per user, because maybe you only want specific users to have that visibility, tools, system configuration, and then you would search for your user. And if you go into your grid rights for that user, you'll find the vendor here. Here's the vendor right here. Any other questions before I move on? All right. So the next thing that I do want to show you is being able to do a part import or a part update of WeSuite, um, your WeSuite repository of parts. And so I'm going to go to Tools and then Part Editor here, Parts Editor. All right. So if you want, so what I'm showing you right now is being able to edit it at a per part level. So for instance, if I go in here and I search for a specific part or a specific type of part, I can find my parts here. And let's say for this specific part, I don't need it anymore. I can actually discontinue it, and I could discontinue it at the individual part level. Um, let's say for this part here, what I want to do is I want to change the unit cost. So I'll change this to $2,000, and it then adds that. And so I can change and edit per part, at this level. Um, in this level here, you can not only edit parts that are open market, that are available to all users, but you're also able to edit contracts, fixed contracts, if you're using the fixed price contract module. So maybe specific parts can, their inflation happens. So, maybe this government contract that you had no longer, it's not $50 a camera anymore. It's $100 a camera. To do a search for all, you can just click the percent signs. It looks like this contract probably doesn't have a lot of parts. Okay, so I have a GSA schedule in here. If I did the percent sign, the 3% signs, it's going to show me all of the parts that I have that are specific to this GSA schedule. And this is where I can make my changes if I want to make changes to certain parts on my GSA. Before I move forward to my bulk edit of parts, does anybody have any further questions for this? All right, moving along here. Oh, one other thing, sorry, before I move on. There is, if you were to scroll all the way to the left, you'll notice that there are your labor categories. So you can edit and add labor per part based off of what you've seen. So it comes in standard when you're dragging in that part into an estimate. Okay. The next thing here is, so in this area here, we have our part accounting part set up. And in this, oh, so it doesn't look like we have access to this here, but you are also able to assign labor per accounting part in this tab once it's connected. You aren't able to edit pricing, but at the very least, you're able to add labor hours that are associated to the labor categories that are being used in WeSuite. All right. Moving on, I'm going to go into here where I'm going to go to tools, and then I'm going to the part import. And for the part import, this is a tool that you could use to bulk import parts or bulk update parts. Um, so I'm going to go in here, and it is going to, there's a minimum requirement of information. So, and it will, populate it'll come up with a pop-up that'll say, hey, you're missing some mappings. So in this case, we're missing the manufacturer and the model number. So if I go here, manufacturer and model number, that is at the very least the most requirement. The other two pieces of information that you absolutely need, otherwise you'll have an issue, is a description and the unit price, um, or unit cost, sorry, of those parts. It's very important to do that because you do need to have some kind of value for your margin to get attached to whatever margin you've set up in your system. Another thing here is let's just say, let's put a scenario out there that the parts that there's a lot of parts that you're going to discontinue. One of these shortcuts is a nice thing to do is you could create a column called discontinue, and we can fill the discontinue with ones. And so it now will go into your WeSuite repository of parts, and it will try to align all of your manufacturer model description and unit cost. Well, not the unit cost, the manufacturer model and description. And it'll review all of those items, and it'll say, okay, I'm going to discontinue this Honeywell. I'm going to discontinue this SDI. I'm going to discontinue this value line. Now, if it doesn't find a one-to-one match, then it's going to skip it and it won't flag it as discontinued because there's no way for it to align. Um, so I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to click here import because we already have some parts in here, but you'll also notice that when I mapped the actual required fields, all of my data and records below went from red to black font. So that means that we've at least gotten the minimum requirements in there. It will ignore columns that are empty. It'll also ignore any data that's like, let's say if you have information in some cells that are empty, it'll also ignore that, and it will flag it as not imported. There is a log that it does take as well, so which is in Excel format. So you can export it and then take a look at what data maybe you're missing, and then re-import, go through the import process once more. All right. So in here under options, so you can add only and you can update only. You could choose one or the other. The add only option is to say, hey, let's go through this whole Excel file and see which ones do not exist. And then it will only add those. So you could have an Excel file of 600 records, but let's say there was only one that got added. If you select add only, it's going to add that part. It should not bring in the other 599 parts. For update, similar logic, update, what it'll do is it's going to look for all of the parts in that import and try to line up all of the required information to update the data. And if it doesn't see anything aligned, then it will ignore it. All right. Um, Another portion here to probably look at is this is where you would import a bulk import for your fixed price contracts as well. All right. So once you have all of your Excel file exactly what you needed, again, you would just click this import button here. Does anybody have any questions? All right. So I just want to show you just quickly for those of you that are thinking of any Blackleaf connections or any imports from Blackleaf, you would go into this Blackleaf Connect, and then you would select where if you want it open market or from any, for any fixed price. And then when you click load, you would need a pricing contract. Let's select this, sorry. So it's just making some data connection here. So it might have some, right now there's probably a little bit of a lag with communication, but what we need to do is once we have the Blackleaf information, when you connect with them, we just put it in the API setup, and then we do the data link. That way we load all of the parts, and then everything is all good here. Next thing, PSA, just so you guys know, PSA is a website that we actually configure for you, and it's hosted by wherever your WeOpportunity or your WeSuite API is hosted. And from there, we have it scheduled. PSA, again, updates we schedule it to update and pull every day, typically off hours. And then it goes again here into your WeEstimate repository for searching. ADI, again, it is not a read from any data set that's provided to us. It is coming from it's coming from the website, and then it's at every time you need an update, that's when you click and select ADI to update that pricing. And also for ADI, we also want to make sure that your model that exists in WeEstimate or in the WeSuite database is exactly the same as your ADI number. And then the last thing here is WeSuite parts. We'll display again the date when it was last updated or pulled, while your accounting parts, we don't do that any longer just due to the many integrations that we have. We want to make sure that you're getting accurate data from there. And the last piece, again, just to kind of explain the color coding here. So your unit cost color background, if it's red, it's typically 90 days or like 61 days or more. If it is yellow or like a lighter yellow, pale yellow, it has been inserted into the job up to 6 days, 60 days, and then so 31 to 60 days. And then if it's green, it's been inserted into the job within the last 30 days. Um, you can control when this color is turns red or green or yellow. And we have I've seen a few clients have always they have all of those always be showing red, so it's a trigger for their users to always get the latest pricing by default as kind of part of their business process. It is definitely very helpful to make sure that your costing is most up to date. um, and then the last item that I do want to mention again is your margins, right? So if you want your sell price to get adjusted when you get the latest pricing, if it does adjust, you want to make sure that there is a setting set up to have the GP control the sale price. And I'll just show you very quickly where that is. If I go to Tools, Program Options, and then on the left side, click markups. And then here under materials, you see it says sale price slash GPM. You want to make sure that in this drop down, the GPM controls the sale price. If you have sale price controls GPM, what will end up happening is that in your estimate, if let's say for this sell price, 133.77, what will end up happening if you get the latest unit cost, it'll keep the sell price and then the GPM will adjust and recalculate. Um, Typically, what I have seen is that the GPM controls the sale price, but um, every company does things differently. So, does anybody have any questions? Is there anything that I should go through once more that you maybe had a hard time hearing, or um, is there anything that you want to go through with regards to part update pricing? So if you're talking about exporting the parts list in totality, that is not something that, especially if you're integrated with accounting, that isn't something we're able to pull for you unless you pull it directly from the database. Um, with WeSuite parts, that's something that you can request from support, and we can give you a full list of your parts repository that's in WeSuite. But if, let's say, you wanted to export this parts list, what you can do is you right-click in any white space, click Export to Excel, and it will show up in the area you set up in your My Settings. And you'll notice here, see it brings in it brought in the colors. It's going to close on me, sorry. But it brought in the background colors as well. Okay, yeah, so for all accounting parts, yeah, it's to export that, it would have to go through your accounting team, um, or whoever your accounting application is, yeah. Uh, As for the updating of parts, so what we're doing here is the updating of parts when I'm doing the latest pricing is very specific to the job with what I'm showing you right here. When we are doing the parts update in the part import or in the parts editor, that is specific to anything that does reside in WeSuite. That is correct. If you are making any updates to parts that exist in, let's say, Blackleaf or ADI or PSA or your accounting system, that is something that is managed outside of WeSuite's database. And the reason why it's important for us to have the latest pricing done at the per job level is there are scenarios where a salesperson will create an estimate, let's say on January 1st, and then they don't revisit it, or they don't have any movement until June. So that's the reason why it would be important, and then that's why we have it at the job level too. And again, just I want to remind everybody, these colors are not specifically when the part was last updated in the data source. This is when it was last inserted into the estimate. So it's really a way to indicate, hey, you created this job more than 30 days ago or more than 60 days ago. Maybe you want to check your repository that everything is all up to date. Any other questions? Don't be shy. Of course, if there are any other questions after this webinar, feel free to submit a support ticket. We will definitely answer it as soon as possible. And of course, if there's anything that you're running into, like an error of some sort, still submit a support ticket with any steps. If you're able to capture a video or screenshots, as well as any job numbers, that's also very helpful. And so with that, it seems like we're done for this webinar. I hope you guys were able to get more information, and of course, enjoying the rest of your week. And Janina, I'll leave it up to you.
Great. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've learned some good information to take back for yourselves and also share with your teams. And if you need to refer to this webinar again, it will be posted on our website by this time tomorrow on our website under Education, Training, and Webinars. And don't forget to mark your calendars for our upcoming webinars. So the next webinars are on admin training, accounting, integration highlights, configuration, mappings, job import, and more. That's going to be on April 8th. And another one would be the WeEstimate 201 Advanced Estimating Features on April 15th. Take care and have a great day, everyone.